Okay.
Okay,
All right, we got
record.
record and there we go. There.
There we go.
That work for you guys?
Good.
Okay. Now I gotta move you all down so I can see what's going on. All right. So I work with Lightroom and then I go into Photoshop and I go back into Lightroom and do different things. And you can see this one here. Okay, these are all zeroed out now. You can see this is what I took. All right. By pulling shadows up, I use shadows, especially with Elley, because it brings her hair out. But for anybody with darker hair, you use the shadows to bring out the curls. And if it makes everything else too white, I'll just drop the highlights down a little bit. Notice the background, it actually does that. So I'm going to actually do that anyway. See, I actually flatten the person before giving them curves back, because that way I can do my own thing with the curves. But I need this this detail in the hair. That's kind of important to me. So that's the two controls I use mostly to preset the image. Now let's bring this into Photoshop. It's working on it. Now, when I'm working on edits and stuff, oh, let me go back. There we go. Just to let you know, when it comes to filters, I only have one. Portraiture by Imaginomic. It's the only one I use. And lately, I only use it about half the time. It depends on the picture on if I'm in a hurry or if it's supposed to look like a Playboyish picture. It softens the skin really well, yet leaves a lot of detail. So it's pretty good for that. Okay, so on this one, I would line it up a little bit better, straighten the things in the background. Unless I want to play with people's heads, if they're OCD, I'll leave a little curve in there just to drive them nuts. Okay, so there we go. And
Dave, just you actually didn't do anything with the filter yet, right?
No, I did
Okay.
not run the filter. And I'm gonna crop this down just a little. There we go. All right. Now we have a little bit of reflection in the background and stuff there. Okay, so first thing I would do on this is I have a couple of actions and I can give you guys the actions if you want. One action that I have, oh, and by the way, I use one of these little things. It has, as you can see, nine numbers, a button, and a dial. I've got all of those buttons programmed for all the things I do. So I'll try and actually do them on the screen so you can see me do them, but I'll explain what it is I'm doing. Two of the biggest things is frequency separation and dodge and burn. Okay.
I've heard somebody mention frequency separation. So yeah, please explain.
Oh, okay. I'll definitely, well, let's do that next. Okay. Frequency separation. I'm going to push one button here. Well, technically it should be one button. Okay. Let me make sure that's running here. There we go. Frequency separation. See, I can use the little dial to zoom in, zoom out, and change the size of my brush without taking my eyes off of anything and just pushing little buttons over here. Okay, so frequency separation. I'm going to run that macro now, and then I'll show you what it does and explain what it is. I saw frequency separation and knew it was important for a long time. I just didn't. I didn't like how long it took, and some people it can come in a lot of different flavors. I finally narrowed it down to exactly what it did, why it did it, and assigned tools to them. And instead of saying high frequency and low frequency, I call it details and colors, because that's exactly what it is. It's details and colors. So for detail, now Elley is pretty much perfect. I mean, what can I say? But let's zoom way in here. Okay, if we zoom in far enough, we can find some things to edit. So these two, you'd almost have to have the macro, because I can't tell you how to create these two layers, but that's what we've got is 2 layers. And this one right here, I use the clone stamp to edit details. And here I use the mixer brush to edit colors. Now, when she's been out in the sun too long, I can, like, let's say she had a, I don't know why she'd have a tan stripe on her cheek, but from the colors here, I can actually blend that out so there isn't a tan line on her cheek. Okay, so that's pretty awesome. And it does not touch the detail at all. And when I'm editing details, it doesn't change the color at all. So that's the difference. Here I can modify the color, and here I can modify the details. So for details, I'm using the clone stamp, and I pick this part of the skin here and put it there. Pick that skin.
Looks like you're editing on a 50% gray layer. Is that right?
That might be, except that if we look at it, and I turn everything else off, that's what we're actually editing.
Yes, right.
It's not a blank layer. It does look gray, but all it is the detail. The color has been removed. And if we look at this one, let's see, what's that a combination of? Oh, that's got details in it. So if I leave just color, see, that's the color layer by itself. So you can see that here, if I blend this, or if there was a line here from her, from a suntan or something, I could blend the color back and forth and blend this around. And it's pretty forgiving. It's very general there. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference in what you see in the two layers. So from this one, I can pick a certain area of skin and say, I want that detail over here. Now, if I was to use the clone stamp without this layer, then if I picked right here and did it down here, well, that just copied the blemish. I don't want to do that. I can get rid of it. If I pick a darker area and paste it in here, it would actually be darker, because it would be taking the color from here also and moving it here. And I don't want to do that. So here it's kind of nice, because you don't have to worry about color at all. Now,
so first you select the area that you like, and then you stamp it onto the area where you want to get rid of the defect or the
exactly.
Okay.
Elley's here, so we won't call it a defect, you know.
No, not at all.
But see, I picked an area here that's got too much detail and put it there. Looks weird. So pick an area that's more conducive to where you're at. Now, if you pick an area that's dark, it's going to have less detail in it. This is really smooth. If I pick that and come over here, see how it's smoothed their skin out. Okay, yeah. Don't want that, because let's see, where's my history?
It'll look unnatural.
I had to make this screen so big so you guys could see it, that I can't see all the stuff I normally see. But this is how we get rid of you know, if laugh lines aren't really part of the picture, you can take those out. You can take out hair if you want, although I just use the generally the healing brush to do that. That works. And I think everything else is pretty good. Now here we've got almost like a tan line. Okay, I'll show you how we get rid of that with the colors here. So I'm going to change to the mixer brush. Have you guys both used the mixer brush before?
Not too often, but I've used it. Yeah.
Okay, mixer brush is a magical brush. It really upset me when I discovered it and found out it had been there all along because I really love that brush. Okay, right in here, I just want that to be contiguous all the way through. I don't care how buff she is. So all I have to do with the mixer brush is actually go back and forth like this. See it taking that out?
It
Pretty much.
basically takes the shadow out, right? You can
takes the
still see that there is some definition there, which is normal in the anatomy,
Right, and it's not taking
but at
any
least
of
you
the
don't have the
detail.
big shadow.
And it's not doing anything with the detail because the details are in the other one. Now, here's
Right.
where I also cheat a little
So-
bit. Go ahead.
Dave, so that would be a good tool to use in some, unlike Elley, a model that is older, that has lines, wrinkle lines in her face. If you wanted to leave the wrinkle lines, but you wanted to get rid of the shadows that are created by the wrinkle lines, you could use that tool as well, right?
No, you'd almost have to take the wrinkles out completely to make that look right.
Okay.
That I would, for older people,
Yeah.
ladies, I do two things. One, I make sure they're lit up a lot. If there's shadows, it's usually a bad thing. And I use portraiture big time
Okay.
because it will take, 10 or 15 years off of them right away and make them look good. You can't take all the wrinkles off of them. Otherwise they
No.
don't look like them. And you can't take even one off of grandpa because he won't look at all proper, So anyway, that's dodge and burn, the details and then the colors. And with the colors,
So is the frequency separation a macro that comes with Photoshop now?
I don't think so, but I can give you one.
I'd love to get a copy of your.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give you those. I think they're on the front page of my training thing, and they're available to anybody. But I can email them. I'll email them to all of you, to the whole list. One of the other things with the colors that I like to do. Now her legs are in pretty good shape here when it comes to bruises and things. When you're running around getting rocks, you tend to bump into rocks. Okay. What you can do is like right here, if I go back and forth here, did you see what it did to her leg there? Let me get.
Might have darkened it a little bit.
Let me go to history. Okay, that's back. Okay, see this part right here where there's a little light and a little dark?
Yeah.
Okay, a little uneven. We can do this and that's gone. I can also pull from up here down to here and it'll lighten it up down here because it's pulling an average of that down into here. Then you can go back and forth on a leg like that and it just makes the whole thing look super smooth and continuous. Okay. So I'm going to flatten my layers because I do that a lot. I go, all right, good enough. And I flatten it down to only having one. Okay. And that's where we're at. Now I'm going to cheat just a little bit because there's still some little lines here. I could have taken those out with the detail brush, but I'm going to show you how to use the mixer brush to do that. So with the mixer brush, just with the one layer, and the mixer brush needs to be set to, I think that's a clean brush. Yeah. If you load the brush, it's going to add that color to here, and that would be bad. So you want to make sure you're using a clean brush. And then everything else is set the way it comes from factory, basically. So with that clean brush, you'll see that I can make this line here go away big time by just brushing back and forth on it. It makes it a little smoother. There we go. But the thing is, what I've found is you may have some smooth spots when you use the mixer brush, but as long as there's detail anywhere else, they won't see the smooth spots.
Mhm.
If they see detail, okay, it's got detail, and their brain goes at that point. That's it. Like there's a little mark here on her arm. If I don't want to do the whole frequency separation, I can just use the mixer brush and mix that in. Same here. All of us have variations in the skin, changes of color, little things that changed a little bit. It's normal. This will also take a little bit of the shininess off of a bald head or whatever. All right, so cleaned her up pretty much. All right, now I'm going to do dodge and burn. That's my favorite. Dodge and burn. If you know dodge and burn, most of your pictures are going to change completely if you haven't used it before. Dodging is lightening up areas that are already light, and burn is darkening areas that are already dark. But it's letting you.
So that would give more three-dimensionality to the
absolutely. We'll get her to pop off the page here. Don't worry, Elley, it doesn't hurt that bad. Wonder if she's awake. I've never heard Elley that quiet for that long.
She's mute.
Oh, okay.
I'm muted so that I don't interrupt you.
Oh, so you can talk to the
Plus,
cat.
I could talk to the cat and talk to my realtor via text, but I still get a kick out of like what you're doing because I don't get to see this part. So listening to you, and you feel free. I have blemishes, I have marks, I have wrinkled skin, I have all kinds of crapple that every human being has. Believe me, it doesn't make me feel bad. So have at it.
Oh, don't worry. I would have been. I have been. You're old enough to not be that vain. So yeah. So
yeah.
One of the things I did in her eyes that I think is important to point out, whenever there's closed eyes, I always lighten right in here and right in here. It completely makes the eyes round. If they weren't before. I mean, they were round before, but that really rounds them out. And then when I go to do burn, I'll actually darken along the edges a little bit. And that just makes the eyes stand out 100%, which I really love. And the thing with dodge and burn that a lot of people don't, they try and stay realistic. And that's completely up to you if you want to stay realistic. But I don't. I want to put light where there wasn't any or there was very little. Okay, I'm going to highlight her hair here. And by the way, I think I'm doing this at 22%.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah, you're 22%.
Now, the better you get at it, the less time it'll take because you can up that percentage, and then you get a feel for how hard to press to get, how much light. And but by putting light places that there wasn't enough light before, like for instance, if this was a nude and it was a side shot and she had one boob back here and one here, and the light was reflecting off of one onto the other one, so you can see a lot of light on it, but then the little reflection here, I would enhance that a lot, probably more than it should, because it'll still look fine because nobody saw the original one. So they don't know that, oh, this is all wrong. But it changes the look completely. It really enhances things. I love that part. And most of the time I look at it and go, is there a way I could have lit that? And the answer is no. To get light in some areas and not affect others, sometimes that's not possible. And then with things like, I zoomed out too far. Okay. Things like legs, you can really shape them by giving some light down the middle. Okay, and if that's not enough, we're going to now go to the burn, and I'll explain those layers in a second. If I go to burn, I can darken over here, and now those legs are really getting round. See the difference?
Yep.
Well, one of the other things I do with burn, and I don't use burn as much as dodge most of the time, but you can see I can really enhance shadows. Up here, I can add it to her cheeks a little more. Usually around the hair, or right around the face. If you darken that up, it makes the face stand out. I mean, it was there anyway, but it really highlights it if you put basically a black circle around it. That does not work on blondes. You have to do a little lighter on a blonde. Okay, but
So you have this brush set for midtones rather than highlights and down to 11%. So really light touch.
yes, it's very light touch because the dark can actually shows up quicker than the brighter one does. And I'm using midtones because that's how it came out of the box. I've never really played with the other two. This does exactly what I want it to do. I
I've never
have,
had any luck with the highlight.
yeah, I have actually played with the others, and I wasn't impressed. I said that this isn't doing what I want it to do. I'm happy with the way I've been doing it. So, but it's always good to check things out. That way you discover things like mixer brushes that have been there all along. Okay, now these two, I didn't mention it when I ran this action. It creates two layers. They are 50% gray. They're both set to overlay. And the only difference between them is one's marked dodge and one's marked burn. And the only reason why we have two is so I can overcook this one and have it way too much dodge. There's the difference, by the way. You look at the eyes. Okay, and if that was too much, I can change the opacity and adjust how that one affects the picture. And I can do the same thing with burn. I also found that if I do dodge and burn directly on a picture, not only is it kind of destructive because I can't back up unless I go back in history, this seems to hit it a lot harder. Even using the same percentages and stuff, it just really hits the picture hard. So having it on separate layers is very handy that way. So there you go.
Dave, I'm gonna get going. I have to call my realtor.
Okay, how's it going on that house? You got it sold yet?
Oh, well, she has to talk to two people, but I have to get her my rental information on it. So I have to call her and ask her what she wants because the line of text messaging is just ridiculous now.
I'm sure. All right. Well, thanks for
See you
visiting.
guys.
Yeah.
Hi,
thanks,
Elley.
Elley. Hopefully
Bye.
you work together again.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Okay, so and then what I do for great, the little bar is in the way now, so I can't well, anyway, I have my logo and I just drag it down here, make it the size I want, and then change the opacity on that too. Okay, so I'm gonna flatten this and save it. And that'll put it back in Lightroom. By the way, if you guys want, I can tell you how I use Lightroom, because I use it, it's my workflow big time. And I never have a case where it says, I don't know where that picture is, because a lot of people use one catalog to do Lightroom. And I mean, I studied this really hard when I first started, because I said, I don't want to go 2 years into it and find out I'm doing it wrong. So I did a lot of research and figured out that what I want to do is have a catalog for each shoot. And when you create a new catalog, it creates a folder and puts all the catalog information in that folder. And then when you import images, you make sure that you tell it, put those images in that folder. That's so when you edit one of those images and save it, it saves it in that folder. So basically, when I go to the Elley R 0322 Mesa House folder, all the pictures are there. All of the catalog is there for me. Everything that I need and everything I've done with that shoot is in that folder. If I pick up the folder and hand it to one of you guys, you can open up all those pictures and see everything that I've done. There is never going to be oh, I can't find this picture. you just have to make sure when you import that you tell it to import it into the catalog that you just created. I've told Adobe at least 20 times that if you create a catalog, it should automatically assume that's where you want to import the pictures. Then in Lightroom, I'm in Lightroom right here. Now I'm just going to make some changes, but if I want to export this, let me show you something. I shoot a lot of body parts, and sometimes if I saw the picture, I'm going, I have no idea whose butt that is. And I did that for a few years before I figured this out. When I import those pictures, I set up a keyword that is actually the same as the name of the folder. When I create the folder, I actually copy the name. And then when it creates the folder and stuff, I paste that into the keywords. So basically in the keywords, there's an LER 0322 Mesa House. Then in here, when I say, okay, when you're ready to export, you put that keyword first and then the file information, the original file name. So when I export this, it's going to be that picture, and the name of the picture is going to tell me exactly which catalog it came from, who it was. If there was a makeup artist, I put their name in it. So basically, it lets me keep really good track of everything. It's really nice. Okay, I got to move this out of the way.
That's a good workflow.
Yeah, it works really well. I was a few years into it before I sat down and really studied the keyword part. And I had to go back over all my old shoots and add the keyword and export them again. So I couldn't just post somebody's butt and go, okay, well, I'll wait for the first person who likes it and see if that's their butt, because that's usually how I can tell. All right, I'm going to star that. It's finished. Now, the last thing I do in Lightroom is I'll come back over here and play around with shadows again. Kind of like adding a little more. I can play with the highlights. I might light her up a little bit more in general. A big one that I do is the dehaze. I'll crank dehaze over and see that brings her out of the background when I do that. The thing is, if I go too far, it turns her like copper color. That's when I come up here to temperature, and I might tweak it back towards the blues a little bit, and that changes the balance. Now, if I use dehaze a lot and I really love the way it makes her, but she's like orange, I may crank this over a lot more to bring her skin tone back to about what I want. And you'll know I did that if you look at one of the backgrounds and there's a lot of blue in it around her, because it goes off in that direction. And I like that too, so I'm okay with it. The only thing you have to know when you're learning how I do things is I don't shoot for reality. If they want reality, they can use their cell phone. And even then, it's not so real anymore. But when I take a picture, I then want to make that picture the way I want it to be. If somebody says, well, the skin tones aren't right, I says, well, they are for me. That's what I want. If you don't like them, then you take that picture and you make those skin tones the way you want, which makes me a terrible fashion photographer, because if you shoot something that's teal, it has to be that exact color of teal. And me, it's going to be some kind of color of teal, maybe, or I might change it to red.
What about vibrance, Dave? Do you use that at all?
No, saturation sometimes, but vibrance, yeah, it depends on the picture. But those aren't on my normal normal to-do list. The dehaze and the highlights and shadows, sometimes exposure, but by the time I get to the second pass, exposure should be fine. That doesn't mean you all shouldn't be using whatever it is that you like out of all of these. I mean, even the turning up the whites here can make a difference on it too. But then you have to look at it again and make sure that everything came out okay and wasn't like completely off, or really fixed up here, but you missed that part. So she looks pretty good in that one.
Yeah.
So let's see let's see the differences here. Move this over. I don't know where the original was. Just oh, I actually just did one that I've already done. Okay, so there's the original one,
Mhm.
and there's the one we just did. And just for fun, that's the one I did, not showing you guys. So the difference here is I wasn't explaining anything as I was going along,
Mhm.
and here I was. I've seen this before. I can edit, and most of the time it's by mistake. I'll edit a picture again, might be a year later, and go, oh man, I already did that one. And I'll look, and they're very different.
Mhm.
Because, well, my mood was different, or, I learned a new tool or whatever. But purposely I did that one because I've already done it and I wanted to see how it would turn out like that. So, let's see. 537 we just did. I thought this one would be a good one.
Mm.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Want to see me do this one?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it.
Okay, so definitely going to use shadows here. So to bring the shadows up a little bit. So we've got more things to edit because, all the detail in here goes away. So we've got that. And sometimes I'll throw a little dehaze in there just to, it does a little contrasty bit for us. So, okay, so now I'll take this, import it in. Okay. All right, so with this one, here's where dodge and burn really comes in handy. But again, I'll do the frequency separation, and most of the time, that's I check out if there's lines from things that she was wearing before. This is a good way to, make those lines go away. Take out bruises. Now let me zoom in a little bit more here. Now, one of the things that I do with a lot of models, they'll be a little different right in this part of their, next to their mouth. They'll have, things will just change there, and you'll have a few more lines than what you had as a kid. Okay, we all do, no question. I would probably go nuts trying to edit my own picture. But like here, it looks a little weird because there's a little stripe there. So I'm going to blend that in a little bit better. Now there's some areas on her here that where she's super bright. That may be so blown out that we don't even have detail. And that's okay. I mean, that's what we need for the picture. It'll work fine. As far as blending, like if we go to the colors and the mixer brush, we might blend her face a little bit here. You have to be careful when you're doing this because wherever you go, that's the color that whole stripe is. So do small sections of it at a time. Don't, if you do the whole thing, then you got one big flat cheek and that wouldn't work. So like down here, it's lighter here, it's darker here. So I would definitely go back and forth here and then do it here and then do it here. So they're not all the same and they are this way. I wouldn't do this with it because that would just mess that up completely. I can do her arm. Yeah, that kind of works. Okay. And flatten that. I don't know about the good enough for government work. Let's flatten it. It comes from, maybe it was working with the city for 22 years.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm going to do the dodge and burn. And I'm going to start with dodge. So we'll lighten it up here. Now this one will be interesting because we're putting light where we know there wasn't any. But we can assume that light is reflected off of something behind her. We may not see it, but there you go. So we can cheat and say, all right, well, yeah, there was a light there. Nobody's going to ask because they're going to see it and go, yeah. The main thing about light is just remember that when we were born, we saw light a certain way and we just took it for granted. Just there it is. And we weren't at that point where we would question something anyway, other than where's my meal. And then when we get to be 2 or 3 and somebody puts us in front of a mirror, all of a sudden that breaks the rules. It's like, oh, this is not right. And that's when you learn about reflection. After that, there isn't much else that happens to light. It's always kind of the same. And you start taking it for granted and saying, well, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. That lets you as an artist play with it even more, and people will believe it because, well, they've learned that nothing changes. So we've given her a lot more shape in her leg and up and through here that wasn't there before by doing dodge. So there's the difference.
Yeah, quite a difference.
So we lit her up completely. So I'm going to flatten that. Now, just for kicks, well, this probably isn't the best image to do that with. So I'm going to save this image, and we'll do another one. Now see, it takes the original picture, and right next to it is the finished picture. So you've got the two to work with. And by the way, to do black and whites, if I wanted that in black and white, I would go in here and say create a virtual copy, which doesn't do a copy of the image. It just does a copy. It shows you the same image with all the controls set the same, and then you can change the way the controls are set. And I usually go up here and say black and white, and it gives me black and white picture. And then I can change the shadows, and in this case, dehaze makes a huge difference. And then you can add grain, you can do all kinds of stuff. So now I have a black and white and a color of really the same image without actually duplicating the image. Both options. Okay, let's see. 461. There we go. Oh, that doesn't have enough skin in it. Let me see if I can find one that's got more of her in it, so I can demonstrate the. No. Well, that'll do for the demonstration of the. There we go. We'll do that one. Wanted to demonstrate the imaginomic portraiture on the skin. Do either of you have that?
No.
No, it's
What's the name of the company that makes the software?
Imaginomic.
Imaginomic.
That's how it's spelled right there.
I don't have that either.
Okay, well, there's a little bit of a sticker shock. It's a couple of $100. Sometimes they have it on sale, especially during the holidays. But Imaginomic, and the cool part is it just saves tons of time. Each picture has now cost me less than a penny, considering paying $200 for it and how much I've used it.
Yeah.
There's some settings over here. And I played with them in the beginning and thought, yeah, okay, well, I think they did a pretty good job. There's normal, medium, and strong. If Elley was a lot older and had some wrinkles and stuff, or her skin was not even, I would do strong, and that would even it all out. If I just want a little bit, I do normal. Most of the time, I do medium. And there's a setting over here to say new layer. So when I bring this up, I usually look at it and go, okay, that looks good. And I say, okay. And you're going to see that it creates, I forgot to flatten, just a second. Okay, let me do it from a flattened image. Well, I think I just flattened it with, I think I just flattened it with the,
Good.
yeah, I flattened it with the, a filter done on it. So you can see on the skin here, everything's even and pretty much very glamour looking. Now, the reason I usually do it with 2 layers is because then I mask the hair and the eyes and the lips back in as being not changed, because that leaves them crisp and bright. And on the hair, it tends to, if it's darker hair or blonde hair, well, actually, if it's hair that has any kind of skin tone in it, it'll soften the hair too. And if you've got some background that, like if she was on a brown wall, the brown wall would get smooth. So then you can mask the wall back in the way it was if you want it to. But that's what Imaginomic Portraiture does.
Nice filter.
Yeah, it's a really good filter. It's worth, to me, it's worth every penny. It makes the editing really fast. Sometimes I don't use it as much as I used to. The skin was really smooth in all my work. I hated that at the very beginning when I saw somebody's images that were super smooth. And then I started doing it and fell in love with it. It's very Hollywood looking. You know, the pictures they would hand out would always be like that. And I found out later, by the way, it took them 8 to 10 hours to make those pictures look like that. And they used pencil lead. They would pencil lead in their finger to dodge and burn actors' black and white pictures.
Do you, so can you use it in a batch of photos? Or you do it each one individually?
There's actually 2 versions you can buy. You can buy a Lightroom version, which, yes, you can select them all and say, okay, do this much to all of these. Then you walk away, get a cup of coffee. When you come back, there's a second image of each one of them with the filter applied. I bought that in the beginning, thinking I was going to do weddings. And I did a few weddings and I used it for a few of those, but I don't do weddings anymore because I'm smarter now or something. Anyway, or lazy. I think if you buy them both together, they were $300. Otherwise, they were $200 each. So I got the $300 bundle. But I only use it in Photoshop. And I can only do one at a time, the one I'm working on at the time. So there's 2 options there. And then, of course, we can come in here and dodge and burn this one. But I just did it to demonstrate the filter. Let's see.
Yeah, it's nice, real nice.
How would you straighten this door, Dave?
Oh, well, let's see. That's still in here. Okay, this is where you just go over here to the framing tool.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 choices. You can pick it up and twist it at this point to line it up. But you also have, there's this bar that's showing up and hiding my control from me. Just making it difficult. There we go. There's a content aware. If you click on content aware and twist it, you'll see that it's not getting rid of any of the picture.
No.
Okay. And when I let go of it, and say, okay, it's going to think about it for a bit because it's going to try and fill in the corners.
Mhm.
So basically it didn't make it smaller. It's going to try and fill in where what it thinks is supposed to go there. Most of the time it's pretty good. This time it went, oh, well, still working on it. Let's see.
Still working.
Yep.
There you go.
See, it put wall in and kind of did things. Might be a little weird stuff down here, but you can clean those up. Yeah, we now moved her around without losing any of her.
But
So,
notice now that the space between the door frame and your photo frame is kind of cattywampus.
oh yeah. Well, I twisted. The thing is, I don't remember what lens I was using, but we have a little bit of fisheye going on here.
Right, right.
Not too much, but a little. Yeah. So if you want these two to be even, and I typically don't, I really kind of like,
Right.
you know, this isn't exactly, um, what's it called? Not free space. Well, where the pictures on the far right that you want to see.
Right.
So yeah, I can grab this, do this to it, but let me show you a trick. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool. I can take this and I can move her in the middle.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, that should be about it right there. Okay. I should have took off the content aware. Let me do that again. Can't show my trick if I do that. Okay, so we're just going to select the image, do a free transform with the image.
And that's
Now
what I
let-
usually end up doing, but you can lose some of the picture.
Yeah, well, let me show you. Now, this depends entirely on what you have going on, but I just moved the picture to the center. And now you see I have this area here that is wrong, right? So I'm going to select this because it works. And I'm going to do another free transform. And I'm going to hold the shift key down and just drag this over.
Wow. That's a nice trick.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Now, if there was a picture hanging on the wall or somebody else standing there, that wouldn't work very well. But I do that a lot. There might be a picture. Let's imagine her in a studio in this exact picture, but I want her to be in a little area here and I want a big blank space over here. Okay. I can actually turn around and make this wider as if I was, here's how I would do that. And we can do it with this one and just get a bit of a feel for it. Okay, I'm going to take this and do that with it. Damn it, I said put content aware in there. I got to turn that off. I don't know what it's going to look like when it's done. It's going to look interesting. Okay.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Definitely different. Okay, now let's try the same thing without content aware. There, it's also quicker.
Yeah.
Now I can do the same thing I did before. It's going to look a little wonky because, well, this isn't exactly how we would normally do it, but I'm going to do free transform again, hold the shift key down and move this over here. That's not too bad, even looking at it like that.
Not bad at all.
Okay, and we can use the mixer brush and play around a little bit with the shadows at the bottom. so it doesn't look so
Yeah.
sharp, or we could have extended that shadow out to here. But yeah, there you go. Negative space, that's the word I was looking for.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
this
what
is kind of cool. The reason negative space pictures are popular is because we always look at the center of every picture. I mean, when we see this picture, we're going to look here. Our eyes are going to move this way. And our brain has already said, we've already invested time to move our eyes from here to here. So we're going to take more time and look at the picture. So that's how to get people to invest more time in a picture. Whether they like it or not at the end, that's something completely different. But
you
that's-
have a space there to put content if it was an ad.
yeah, this would be a good place to
or
put
something like that.
ad stuff. Yeah. Just for kicks, I'm going to save this. You guys want to see a reflection? How I would do a reflection?
Sure.
Like the kitchen one?
Yeah, I've got time.
371. Now, this isn't the same one I posted this morning, but we're going to edit this one. Okay, first I'll take shadows and bring her hair back a little bit. Actually, you see the shadows brings up a little bit of everything. We might change the exposure just a little more. And just a little haze to it. Okay, now I'm going to edit this one in Photoshop. There we go. Now it's really important. Two things are important. First of all, got to make sure there's a line straight across here. If she was standing here with 1 foot further forward than the other one, then it's a real hassle to try and get a reflection. And you'll see why in a second. So I would take her, I would edit her to make sure everything was perfect on her. And then I'll take and I'll select this. See, I'm running the line right about where her bottom and her shoe is. Doesn't have to be super accurate. And I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. Then I'm going to go into let's see, wait a minute. Yeah, and I'm going to turn it into free transform. That's the copy is in free transform right now. And then I'm going to go to free transform and flip it vertical. Okay, you follow that?
Yep.
Copy, paste, make it free transform, and then flip it vertical. Then you slide it down here, you line it up with her and say, okay. Sometimes you have to clean things up. Okay, see, the heel didn't quite work like it's supposed to there. So I can go free transform again, and I can line things up. I can also tweak just a little if I want to do, if things didn't line up quite right. So the heel and the butt, because nobody will ever notice that that's not an exact. Actually, anybody paying close attention is going to know that's not real anyway. Now, to make it super simple, you take that same, go back to layers. You take that same layer, this one here, and you can change the opacity on it. So it's not a full reflection. Now, before we do that, let's put a mask on this one because there's things that flip that we don't want to flip. So I'm going to paint in black. Let's see. We kind of do want the refrigerator reflection to be there. Let's take all that out. We just want her to reflect. So you can take all of the reflection you didn't want. Well, that actually looks okay. But anyway, you can do that and then change the opacity of the original one. Sorry, I'm having to move things around here because there's Zoom stuff in my way. I can't get to it. All right. So then we turn down the reflection just a little bit. So that looks pretty real. And then to make it even more real looking, you can go into filters, go to blur and Gaussian blur, and you can blur her reflection. That looks real. I might even have trouble figuring out whether that's real or not. But typically without the blur, you can tell. This heel here doesn't touch because it's not in the line. So the heel came up to here and then it started over there. If this is a real reflection, then that heel would show up and touch. So you can look at them, and if you get really technical, you can usually tell. You can look at it and go, oh yeah, that was done in Photoshop. But you have to have that line. Anytime you try and do anything different, it's funny, I've done somewhere the model was on a mirror and I shot from 45 degrees down. So in the reflection, you can see up her nose. And of course, in the other one, you're looking down on her nose. And people say, did you Photoshop that? I said, no, you're seeing things that isn't in the original picture if I tried to do that. So no. But what can be fun doing it this way is you can find two that are really close to the same. Maybe she's looking away in one and looking down in the other, and you can mirror that one. And if her head's in both of them, then one's a little different than the other one. That can be kind of fun. You usually have to point it out because people don't look hard enough.
Yeah.
But
that does look realistic now.
yeah, it's, and that Robert asked me, you know, I mentioned something about how clean the floor was, that she can see her reflection. And Robert said, I want the name of the people who polish the floor like that. So what do you guys think? Anything else you want to see or want me to do
No.
another one here?
No, this is interesting, but I've got some other activities I need to do this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
I think I learned a lot of tips.
Cool. Well, awesome. Well, I'm here if you have questions and stuff. So email me or message me on Facebook or Instagram, and be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dave. That was very helpful.
Or
Yeah.
I'll make up
And
stuff. I mean, I can
Reminder,
do
send me the separation, phase separation.
Okay.
Yes,
I-
please.
For the whole group, actually.
Thank you for the reminder. I'll send that out right now.
Yes, the actions. Thank you, Dave.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And I'll
Have a
keep
good-
an eye out for any other photo shoots that you have.
Yep,
That'd
I'll
be
be
Okay.
really
looking
good.
for 'em.
Yeah. We probably won't have any more in the heat of the summer, but
Okay.
maybe in fall we'll do some more.
All righty. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Bye
Thank
now.
you. Talk to you later.